Freedom of speech seems to be a tricky concept these days. Since social justice has become a mainstream topic, I guess everyone wants to give their 2 cents, which is fine, as long as the conversations are productive and encouraging, not limiting. However, too often regular people are told what not to do, how to behave, or address someone. Remember someone's pronouns and gender identity, even if that someone identifies as a toaster. Which, according to a chart I found online, means it can actually happen. Someone can identify as a toaster if one assumes toaster to be a gender. This girl, Annie, has the same Tumblr SJW mentality I briefly described. She goes on to explain how casual ableist language is offensive to the disabled. Let's hear.
Hello. It's Let's Talk Tuesday, so let's talk about casually ableist language. Ableism, specifically casual ableism, is widely accepted in our society, particularly when it comes to our language.
I'll be honest, I had to Google ableism, and what I found was astonishing. Annie, if you want to police people and how they speak and use words in their verbal and informal written communication, maybe you should also take into consideration how you use words, because I'm very curious how language can be so discriminating against you as a disabled person. The word discrimination itself is a harsh word, and it really entails active, unjust behavior towards you only because you have a disability. Watering down the meaning of a word makes it a buzzword, and buzzwords lack real meaning.
No wonder most people don't care about access or equality when it comes to people with disabilities if our everyday language perpetuates the idea that they are lesser.
I don't think people do not care about access. It's just a topic that has not been brought to the surface very often, and it certainly has little to do with language as you perceive it. You make me think that you assume casual ableist language is to blame for the lack of accessibility. I would like to argue against it and assume there is not enough activism towards your kind.
Ableism is constantly used to insult others or describe something as negative, and oftentimes people don't even realize where these words are coming from, what these words mean. So, warning, I'm about to possibly throw out some slurs and otherwise really offensive terms for people with disabilities for sake of example. First, there's using disabilities as insults. Remember those campaigns to stop saying, "That's so gay"? Because why are you using homosexuality to express something negative? Okay, so in that same breath of campaigns creating awareness of harmful language, like the use of the R word, we should have included the word lame. Do you know what lame means? It means someone who can't walk, or walks with pain and or difficulty. Ding, 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 ding.
Alright. Words are scribbles on a paper or a screen. A word is a combination of letters. The moment a word has a context is when the word acquires a soul, so to speak. It breathes, it lives. Words have multiple meanings and can be used in different contexts. That R word has a bunch of meanings, and one of them is indeed a mental disability. But it also can be used as a verb to describe delay in progress, not necessarily mental. Similarly with lame, you compare two different contexts. One is medical, the other informal slang. The regular person will know the meaning that is most commonly used and maybe a bunch more of the same word. And for you to get squishy because some people use it as an insult is a little alarming.
After learning the word's true definition, go ahead, look it up for yourself. I promise you, that's what the dictionary will say. And I certainly no longer feel comfortable using it in that way.
Dictionary is not the law. People tend to update them. For one, if you look up the word in the dictionary, not only will you find the so-called true definition, you'll also find the description of what lame means as a slang word. Now what?
It's very clear that people knew what it meant, and they started using it to describe things in a negative way.
What do you mean people knew what it meant? Who are they? Also, it's possible that those who knew the initial meaning might have used it in a derogatory way on purpose, but you can't stop the ride. Your only hope is that the word becomes dated and something more non-offensive takes its place. Or you can complain enough and make it just as chastisable as the word nigger, which, for the record, had a neutral connotation. But then came the slavery, and thanks to some assholes, that word has become extremely offensive.
Now, things like the word lame are, for the most part, very unintentional. A lot of people do not know what that word means or where it comes from. But then, another common thing is how people literally use disability in order to insult or condescend to someone. What are you, blind? Are you deaf? What is wrong with you? Are you mentally ill? You need help. You seriously need help. Nut job? Psycho? How can you be so stupid? What if we are actually blind or visually impaired? What if we are actually deaf or hard of hearing? What if we actually do struggle with mental illness or mental disability? When one asks such things in this context, when you use this as a way to condescend or insult, you're doing it with implications that a disability makes you less than.
There are plenty of things people don't know in terms of language. That is not to say their ignorance is excusable. From what I vaguely gather, you do not like when people assume you are able-bodied, shout an ignorant insult at you, and then find out you're disabled. They don't do it to insult you as a person. What it means is that they, because of their assumptions of you, think it is alright to point out that your behavior is that of a blind, deaf, or a crippled person, which is unacceptable to them if they assume you're not disabled. If anything, it's a tough way to teach a clumsy person to be mindful of their surroundings. While there are times when it will be used as an insult, it's not meant in a literal sense. If someone calls you stupid, it means you do or say something that is foolish. They do not say you now have a mental disability. Do yourself a favor and look up all those supposed insults and see what context they are synonymous to. I think it will help you a lot.
Then there's using a disability and mental/chronic illness as an expression. Yeah, I'm super OCD about my books. Oh my god, what the I'm sorry, I can get so bipolar sometimes. You are so ADD. Even a blind man can see diabetes. Appropriating language from sick and disabled communities is harmful. Saying things like that diminishes what those words really mean. And it makes it harder for people who actually deal with these disorders and illnesses to openly discuss them and be taken seriously. Not only that, but these metaphors and references are extremely ignorant. Like, not even close to what those terms actually mean.
Yes, words do lose their meanings if used in shitty contexts. I think one thing you do not quite grasp is that in the realm of informal spoken and written language, words acquire new meanings on a daily basis. It's the type of language that changes the most. It tends to be subjected to trends, especially amongst the youth and some adults who just do not have the mental capacity to think for themselves. My point is, you complain about a language that does not have language norms. Therefore, whatever is out there is deemed as correct. Your perception about what it makes you feel, personally, is your own issue.
Let's use, for example, the misuse of the word trigger. And so, now it's made fun of. It's taken less seriously. But triggers are a real thing. And if you're not a terrible person, you should probably respect that it happens. And do small things that you can do to be considerate. People with PTSD and other mental illnesses know very well that moving through the world is hard, that things come without warning. But if we can make things just a little bit safer by warning someone of content ahead, then why not?
You can thank overly sensitive bigots for that. If triggers were a real thing, then that's in the past, because nobody understands what triggers are these days. Feminism wasn't as horrible as it is now. Racism and rape were deemed as horrible deeds done by the most cruel and immoral of people. As of late, because everyone gets triggered for the dumbest of things, it has lost its meaning. It's a buzzword now. Same as with racism. People are labeled as racist for the smallest and dumbest of things. Just by being white, one is a racist. And tell me, how can this be helpful to the cause? False rape accusations seriously sabotage those who were actually raped. All of this is not because people ignorantly use words in informal contexts inappropriately. It's because a few fundamentalists hijack a cause and then crash it.
Ultimately, my point is, we need to constantly examine our actions, our language, our ableism, if we want to evolve in that respect. Ultimately, these terms are taken less seriously as a result of appropriation and misuse. And it's a real shame that the things that can be so stigmatized and difficult to talk about in the first place are that much more difficult to talk about because people chose to do so.
Respect is something that needs to be earned. It is not granted. What most likely you are referring to is common courtesy, to which I agree. There should be more common courtesy, not only for the disabled, but from the disabled towards the regular people. Overall, if you want to police people for their use of language when they are speaking in informal settings, I would suggest you to not do that, because it's pointless. People will say what they want to, and if it's in the private setting in their own homes, I don't understand how it could be harmful to you.